Okay, but anyway, after you get the, your form, established, like I, detail in that video, you can do things like this and just drag and drop the controls, and there's a lot of, kind of cool alignment features this uh, has. Um, again, I haven't touched visual products, since Visual Basic 6, so they made a lot of improvements in terms of laying your interface out, although it doesn't work so well here because you don't get like the ability to arrange things and so forth like you normally would in a Windows form. Um, so that sucks a little bit of donkey balls, but the fact of the matter is that the thing works. So um, and like I said, okay, let's look at the okay. This is a the funny thing is about Windows programs, they seem to be like bass backwards. The CPP file, has very little code in it, but the .h file has like almost all the code in it, so that's kind of really strange. Now, I guess you could actually define it to work differently if you wanted to, but because again, files really don't matter. It's just a matter of does your linker know where to find it. Um, Basically the code I did, I first did this program in Visual Studio 2010 on my other computer, and but the code that I put in here is pretty much identical to it, with the exception that the windows are a little different. Because you got to go through jump through a few more hoops. Because again, in 2010 they've allowed you to do forms, in C++, but these days they shun it. So, which really sucks because personally I still rather kind of program Windows in C++, since it's such a powerful language. Even if I was just doing a simple like, fucking calculator program or what the fuck ever, with standard Windows, I mean, it's great to, have the option of using MFC, just like in Visual Basic and maybe 5 and 6. I mean, I could use, APIs if I wanted to, but I didn't have to use the Win API, but I could use it if I wanted to, selectively when I needed it, to do things like draw fancy, shapes or whatever, make the windows, shape windows, and I did some pretty interesting stuff, especially VB5 days. But I mean, I'd like to use the API just like I did in Visual Basic, but just more, have a more complete access to it. Because in Visual Basic, since it doesn't have pointers and shit, it couldn't do everything. You couldn't access every API. But in C++ you can. But if you got to have the baggage of trying to figure out all the fucking APIs and not being able to work with visual controls, I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not going to do that. It make creating simple programs not only mind-blowingly involved, but also fucking look awful because you wouldn't know what you're doing until you run the program. Anybody that is designing a Windows application in a non-visual way, I think personally, is an idiot. So unless it's just something real simple, that's why a lot of the code out there, a lot of like shareware and shit traditionally kind of look like shit, and no wonder if people are doing it with MFC and writing in C++. So, yeah, you can't see what the fuck you're doing. So, anyway, the fact of the matter is, though, is that, this is, there's very little of the CPP file in here, but then the .h file, you got all this garbage, and you never really touch it. It tells you not to. Required methods for designer support do not modify the contents of this method. With the code editor. So, you should not touch this shit. As you add controls, it'll add, entries to this, and it does create a hassle sometimes, because sometimes it's difficult to delete certain things, and, like to get a goddamn, if you accidentally click on an event, you want to edit an event, etc., and you accidentally add one, it's hard to remove it. So, it's easy to end up with a bunch of damn events in here you don't want to remove because it'll fuss at you if you try to just frickin' delete them. So it's a little bit of a pain in the ass. I mean, it's got that going against it, I'll tell you that much. But again, my plan is just to do any Windows development C# and, to try to kind of, more or less move away from C++. I just, it's a good starting point to understand the other languages. I know that, the Java and the, C# and all that shit. So, But again, it's just a little too quirky. But I'm sure the other things will be quirky too. But one thing about C++ that's nice is that it's portable. You know, you can program it on, you know, Linux or, you know, wherever. You know, I'm sure even Android can be programmed that way, and definitely embedded systems and so forth. So it has its uses. C++ is definitely a worthwhile language to learn, and especially since you get C as a subset, and C you can fucking do anything. So, I mean, C is a very base language. I mean, like I said, you don't need OOP at all to program. You know, you don't. You know, you don't need C++, and some people really don't like it. So, like I was saying on some of the other videos. At any rate, as far as our little forum is concerned, let's see what we got here. Okay, in region, so that's the end of the stuff you shouldn't touch. Then we got a form load event. Okay, so that's what we deal with in here. You know, passes all these parameters as part of it. And we do a clear on it. So it's a clear function that we define somewhere in here. Then srand, you know, this is where we're seeding our random number generator, just like we did in that code I showed you in one of the last videos. Then we're doing, you know, the system void clear. So this is a clear function that we see defined there. But we're out of the scope, you know, of this. You know, I don't like how Windows does that. I don't like these like that. I do not like this style one goddamn bit. You know, it's just not very clear, you know, what goes with what when you do it that way. So, but at any rate, you know, we got this, you know, thing here. And like I said, the use of this pointer tells me we're in a class, even though that may not be readily apparent to you, but the fact of the matter is this whole damn thing is actually a class. You follow clear up to the, you know, okay, we start with a namespace, okay, so we're defining a namespace for Lotto 1. Then we have all these using namespace parameters so we can, you know, save some typing ostensibly. And public reference class, my form. Public system Windows forms form. So it's an inherited class. It's inherited from all this shit. And I don't know what reference means. So, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, you know, but this is as far as I've gotten as far as understanding Windows. But it is a class, and it's called my form, you know, so this is what you got here. In fact, the name's usually down over here too somewhere. Yeah, I don't know where it is. File full name, okay, Lotto, my form, and clear. I guess that's where our cursor is at. But you know, class name, you know, public, protected. So these are here. You know, add the constructor code here. So this is where you put your constructor in my form and colon my form. Protected stuff. Clean up any resources being used. So it doesn't say don't touch this shit. You know, there's a destructor. It's a protected destructor. Deletes the components. And here's, you know, a list of the buttons we have in it. And again, I'd probably get more into this, but again, I'm just reluctant to, because, you know, if Microsoft's not going to support it, I mean, again, this is Microsoft's operating system and Microsoft's product. Why bother learning this at all? You know, if they're just going to fucking make it go away in a few years, you know, I mean, what's the point? So to me, that's why I got passive interest in it at this point. Because I'm not convinced they're not going to pull some shit like that off. I mean, just look at Windows 10 if you don't believe me. You know, they tend to make a lot of idiotic mistakes. Okay, but at any rate, we have the system myform load event, and you know we're going to process this clear function, which again, that's what's weird too. The editor behaves funny in these windows. I don't know why, and it probably has something to do with how they have all this shit arranged. But I don't know. But you know, like defining this function, normally it just would look different. You know, it's got a private here. Okay, well, that's nice and dandy, but it doesn't need to be there. I mean, you know, that would normally define a section. So, I mean, private seems like it's a little silly, you know, to have here, but I don't know. This is how I typed it in. Apparently, I don't know why I typed it in that way exactly. Because, I mean, I should be able to just make that a private, you know, private part of the class. And see here, this is, you know, in a different position. You know, this is kind of out of whack. But for some reason, it puts the damn shit there. I mean, it's just really strange how this works. I mean, you know, normally private and public and shit like that go as far left as possible, like you see down below there. But that's probably too far over because we're, you know, in the midst of a class definition. But, you know, still I'd like it to align with the rest of my shit. So, ugh. But then we got, you know, the button click event right here, you know, in this section, and all it does is execute the clear command, which that just simply goes in and goes, you know, again, this pointer, you know, which is a pointer to other members in this class, and you know, this shouldn't even be necessary, but I don't know. I mean, there shouldn't be any confusion. I should just be able to go label dot text, you know, equals that. I shouldn't need to use this pointer. Well, I guess it doesn't want to work, so I don't know. Is IntelliSense acting buggy again? It seems to be. I don't have to type a bunch of goddamn fucking arrows. Anyway, like I'm going to be doing much programming in Windows anyway, on C++. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't doubt that IntelliSense is still buggy even after that update. But at any rate, this motherfucker goes in and, you know, clears some stuff and, you know, enables and disables some buttons, and then you know, then args, you know, see, this is you know, calling the clear function, button 2 click, and this is kind of the brunt of our operation here. Is where we're going to generate a random numbers, kind of like we did in that other program. You know, it's a very, very, very similar algorithm, you know, except we're dealing with labels and all that shit as we go. But here's the same algorithm that, you know, swaps the members of the array. And that you got to use these weird conversion functions apparently to, you know, fucking, you know, convert numbers into something that text can understand, text box can understand, because it's not smart enough to do that on its own like it used to be in Visual Basic, until I guess they may have fucked that up. That's why a lot of people still program in VB6, so they don't have to put up with it. I mean, that's the charm of Visual Basic. You don't have to define everything. You know, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter how readable or unreadable or digestible to a C programmer the code might be. It's none of their fucking business. I mean, people that program in Visual Basic 6 and 5 program in it for a reason. You know, they like it, and there's nothing wrong with it. You know, so and if you know annotate your code well and everything, you can still make pretty damn readable programs, and there's really nothing wrong with it. But anyway, you know, that's pretty much, you know, all it's doing. I don't know why we're doing this in this for loop, though. I mean, that's something we should do afterwards. I mean, it's basically every time it runs through this loop, you know, all 50 times, it's going to change the label every time. So that's kind of inefficient coding right there. But again, that's how the book did it. So, you know, I'm not going to argue. That really should come after this. But anyway, the point is that, hey, it was a nice dandy little program, and, you know, but that's, you know, about all there is to it. You know, I do have other, you know, programs I did off the internet, you know, internet tutors, you know, to look at. So, anyway,